Walk into any American grocery store and the shelves look full. Produce from California, beef from Texas, seafood from Alaska. Everything appears normal, abundant, reliable. But that abundance hides a fragile system that's breaking down faster than most people realize. Last month, a mother in Ohio discovered that her family's grocery bill had increased by 40% over the past year, even though they're buying the same items. She blamed inflation, corporate greed, supply chain issues. She had no idea that part of the problem was a drought in Argentina affecting soybean crops, flooding in Pakistan destroying rice fields, and heat waves in Europe reducing wheat yields. Her family's dinner table connects to farms, weather patterns, and political conflicts across 6 continents through supply chains so complex that even experts struggle to map them. And right now, those connections are under more stress than at any time since World War II. According to the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, global food prices have reached levels that historically trigger social unrest and political instability, but this time is different. This time, the pressures aren't coming from one source, they're coming from everywhere at once. Climate change is rewriting the rules of agriculture while geopolitical tensions are weaponizing food supplies. The result is a perfect storm that's already hitting American families but could get much worse. Welcome to Crisis Zone. Today we're examining how distant droughts and foreign conflicts are quietly reshaping what Americans eat and what they pay for it. The numbers tell a story that most Americans never hear. According to agricultural climate data, the world's major grain-producing regions are experiencing weather patterns not seen in recorded history. It's not just that it's getting warmer, it's that weather has become unpredictable in ways that break farming systems designed around seasonal reliability. Australia, which normally exports wheat to dozens of countries, has faced 3 consecutive years of extreme weather that destroyed crops and flooded storage facilities. Argentina, the world's 3rd largest soybean exporter, experienced its worst drought in 60 years, followed immediately by floods that washed away what crops had survived. But here's where climate change intersects with geopolitics in dangerous ways. Russia and Ukraine together export about 30% of global wheat supplies. The war hasn't just disrupted Ukrainian farming, it's turned grain exports into weapons of diplomatic pressure. According to trade data, Russia has been selectively restricting grain exports to countries that support Ukraine while offering favorable deals to nations that remain neutral. Food becomes a tool of foreign policy, and countries start hoarding supplies instead of trading them freely. India, facing domestic food inflation, banned wheat exports to protect local prices. Indonesia restricted palm oil exports. More than 20 countries have implemented food export restrictions in the past year, according to the World Trade Organization. Each restriction creates ripple effects that eventually reach American grocery stores. When India stops exporting wheat, global wheat prices rise, affecting the cost of bread in Ohio. When Indonesia limits palm oil exports, snack food prices increase across America because palm oil is used in thousands of processed foods. The climate dimension makes these political restrictions more dangerous. In previous decades, when one region faced crop failures, other regions could increase production to compensate. But climate change is creating simultaneous crop failures across multiple regions, eliminating the redundancy that global food systems depend on. According to agricultural modeling studies, the probability of simultaneous crop failures in major grain-producing regions has increased by 300% over the past 2 decades. When everything fails at once, politics fills the gap where markets used to operate. Here's the mini recap. Climate change is creating unprecedented crop failures, while geopolitical tensions are turning food exports into political weapons, creating supply disruptions that affect American food prices and availability. Modern food systems operate on assumptions that no longer hold true. Grocery stores stock 3 days of inventory, expecting that trucks will arrive on schedule with fresh supplies. Restaurants plan menus around ingredients they assume will be available at predictable prices. Families shop weekly, expecting that their regular purchases will always be on the shelves. But these assumptions depend on supply chains that stretch across continents and oceans, and those chains are breaking down in ways that reveal how vulnerable American food security really is. Fertilizer shortages demonstrate how global disruptions cascade through the food system. Russia and Belarus export about 40% of global potash, a key fertilizer ingredient. According to agricultural input studies, sanctions and trade restrictions have created fertilizer shortages that reduce crop yields even in countries with perfect weather. American farmers are paying 300% more for fertilizer than they did 2 years ago, according to farming industry reports. Those costs get passed directly to food prices, but with a delay that means the full impact hasn't hit grocery stores yet. Transportation bottlenecks multiply every other problem. According to logistics industry analyses, container ships that used to take 2 weeks to cross the Pacific now take 4 weeks due to port congestion, fuel costs, and routing changes around geopolitical tensions. Fresh produce spoils during these delays. Price volatility increases when delivery schedules become unpredictable. Grocery stores start stocking processed foods with longer shelf lives instead of fresh items with higher nutritional value. Energy costs affect every step of the food system. According to energy usage studies, modern agriculture consumes enormous amounts of diesel fuel for tractors, natural gas for fertilizer production, and electricity for processing and storage. When energy prices spike due to geopolitical tensions, food prices follow automatically. But the most dangerous disruption is financial. Food trading depends on stable currencies and reliable credit systems. According to agricultural finance data, many developing countries can't afford to import grain at current prices, even when grain is physically available. These countries stop buying from global markets, reducing demand that should theoretically lower prices. But instead, exporting countries reduce production because they can't find reliable buyers. Supply shrinks even when theoretical demand exists. The result is a global food system where abundance and scarcity exist simultaneously. Food sits in warehouses in some countries while people face hunger in others. Not because of natural limitations, but because financial and political systems can't coordinate distribution. Here's the mini recap. Global food supply chains depend on fertilizer availability, transportation reliability, energy affordability, and financial stability that are all being disrupted simultaneously by climate and geopolitical pressures. These global disruptions aren't abstract problems happening to other people in distant countries. They're already changing what American families eat and what they pay for it in ways that will accelerate over the coming months. Meat prices face particular pressure because livestock production depends on grain feed that's becoming more expensive and less reliable. According to agricultural economics data, it takes about 7 pounds of grain to produce 1 pound of beef. When grain prices double, meat prices follow within months. American cattle ranchers are reducing herd sizes because they can't afford feed costs. According to livestock industry reports, cattle inventories are at their lowest levels in decades, which means meat shortages and higher prices are inevitable regardless of what happens with international trade. Processed foods face different but equally serious challenges. According to food manufacturing data, most packaged foods contain ingredients from multiple countries. A single box of cereal might contain wheat from Kansas, sugar from Brazil, and palm oil from Indonesia. When any of these supply chains break down, entire product lines disappear from shelves. Fresh produce reveals how global American food systems have become. According to import statistics, Americans consume fruits and vegetables from over 100 countries. When political tensions disrupt trade relationships or when climate disasters affect growing regions, produce variety decreases and prices increase. But the most concerning trend is the shift toward food nationalism. According to trade policy analyses, countries are prioritizing domestic food security over international trade relationships. This means reliable suppliers are becoming unreliable as governments redirect exports to domestic markets. Restaurant menus are already adapting to these changes. According to food service industry reports, restaurants are simplifying menus, using more local ingredients when possible, and building price flexibility into their business models. The year-round availability of exotic ingredients at stable prices is ending. School lunch programs face budget crises as food costs increase faster than funding. According to educational nutrition data, many school districts are reducing meal quality or increasing family costs to maintain programs within existing budgets. Food banks report increased demand while facing higher costs for donated food. According to hunger relief organizations, families who never needed assistance are requesting help while traditional food donations become more expensive and less available. The psychological impact extends beyond immediate costs, according to consumer behavior research. Food inflation affects family decision-making about everything from housing to education as families reallocate budgets to maintain nutrition. Here's the mini recap. Global food system disruptions are increasing American meat prices, reducing processed food availability, limiting fresh produce variety, forcing restaurant menu changes, straining school nutrition programs, overwhelming food assistance systems, and affecting family financial planning. The reality is that individual families can't control global weather patterns or international trade policies, but they can control how well they prepare for food system disruptions that are already underway and likely to accelerate. Food storage strategies need to account for supply chain unreliability rather than just emergency preparedness. According to nutrition and storage research, families should focus on shelf-stable foods that provide complete nutrition rather than just calories, rice, beans. Canned proteins, cooking oils, and basic seasonings provide nutritional foundations when fresh options become expensive or unavailable. Local food system development becomes critical when global systems become unreliable. According to agricultural extension data supporting farmers' markets, community gardens, and local food producers create supply alternatives that aren't vulnerable to international disruptions. Learning food preservation skills allows families to take advantage of seasonal abundance and price fluctuations. According to food preservation research, home canning, freezing, and dehydrating enable families to buy foods when prices are low and availability is high, then maintain supply during shortages. Nutrition flexibility helps families maintain health when food variety decreases, according to nutritional science. Understanding how to combine available foods to meet dietary needs becomes essential when specific ingredients become unavailable or unaffordable. Community cooperation multiplies individual preparation efforts. According to community resilience studies, neighborhoods that coordinate bulk purchasing, share preservation equipment, and exchange surplus foods maintain better food security than families preparing independently. Financial preparation should account for continued food price increases. According to economic forecasting, food inflation is likely to persist and accelerate as climate and political pressures intensify. Building food budgets that can absorb price shocks prevents families from reducing nutrition when costs rise. The most important preparation is psychological. Accepting that the era of unlimited food variety at stable prices is ending, and that successful families will be those who adapt to new realities rather than expecting old systems to continue functioning. According to adaptation research, families who view food system changes as challenges to overcome rather than disasters to endure maintain better nutrition and financial stability during transition periods. Here's the mini recap. Individual food security requires shelf-stable storage, local food system support, preservation, skill development, nutrition flexibility, community cooperation, financial preparation for continued price increases, and psychological adaptation to permanent food system changes. The global food crisis isn't coming, it's here. Climate change and geopolitical tensions have created supply chain disruptions that are already affecting American grocery stores and will continue intensifying regardless of political or diplomatic solutions. Unlike previous food crises that were temporary disruptions to stable systems, this crisis represents permanent changes to how food is produced, traded, and distributed globally. The abundance and variety that American families take for granted developed under climate and political conditions that no longer exist. American families can't control international conflicts or global weather patterns, but they can control how well they understand emerging food system realities and how thoughtfully they prepare for continued disruption. The communities that maintain nutrition and food security successfully will be those that build local resilience, develop preservation and storage capabilities, create neighborhood cooperation networks, and adapt their expectations to new economic realities. This isn't about doom and gloom, it's about recognizing that food systems are changing and that preparation is better than panic. Subscribe to Crisis Zone and join Americans who understand that food security starts with understanding the systems that put food on our tables. In the comments, tell us, have you noticed changes in food prices or availability in your area, and what steps is your family taking to build food resilience? Because while we can't control the global forces reshaping food systems, we can control how wisely we prepare for the changes they're creating.